Time has come once again to speak as witches and wizards do. I'm Daniel and
And I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
and we're your hosts for the Think Like a Wizard podcast. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 11, The Debrief. Because a lot has happened. We've done a lot. New things are at work in the world. I mean, not just we did stuff, but there's new things at play in the world, and it's probably time to take a moment to kind of get everyone settled down, acclimated. And we're going to do that by talking about penance.
Yes, I'm looking forward to hearing about this.
Yes. So the idea of talking about penance is to express the difference between punishing yourself, like retreating into yourself and punishing yourself. You know, like the idea of like when you see like the really old Catholic thing of, 100 lashes with a whip there to every time you have an impure thought. That is a form of penance, but that's not what we're really going to get into. What we're really getting into is to look at understanding your shadow side and actually either fixing what you've done or recognizing what to do going forward, but not by abdicating responsibility for what you've done by physically punishing yourself or isolating yourself. I think that's pretty much the way of wording that.
Right. So, a check for understanding here. That means that rather than, well, I did things so we're all square now, there's a deeper sense of I did the thing and now what am I going to do to not do it again and or make it better? Is
Yes.
that those are the two
Yeah.
levels you're talking about? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
always thought, that whipping yourself thing is kind of a kink, right? So I'm not sure
Well,
it's a
yeah.
penance necessarily. Uh yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's maybe a subject for a different
Right.
podcast.
It's easier to flagellate yourself because that's what it's called, flagellation. It's easier to flagellate
Right.
yourself than it is sometimes to face up to what you've actually done in face of other people.
Right. Well, there's that thing of confession on a Sunday, right? You
Hmm.
you go in, I know enough about it that you go into the little box and you
Right.
confess all your sins and you get a certain number of Hail Marys to
Yes.
say and off you toddle, you're good to go. And I know that somebody who is religious would say, well, no, you're supposed to
Not do it
not do
again.
it again,
Yeah.
and so on. But I also know that many, many people don't use it that way. They figure they've ticked the box, therefore they're okay. And and that's a very superficial level of what you're talking about, I think,
Hmm.
where you're doing the penance, lip service to it anyway.
Yeah.
And then did anything change? No. Will you do it again? Yes.
Yeah.
That's my experience anyway,
Yeah.
that I've seen happening.
Hmm. And that's a pretty good assessment. But this is even like deeper for the listener because, you know, punishing yourself in private, kind of like, okay, uh, I did something wrong. So now I'm like, I was bad in a relationship one time, so I'm not going to have relationships anymore. So I'm punishing myself for the thing that I've done wrong. That doesn't
Mm,
fix the problem. So basically, it's punishment that doesn't solve the problem. Punishing yourself so you feel like you're doing something right, but really you haven't solved what you've done. And that, well, I mean, right? Because if you're going to wield power, you have to be able to make proper decisions and you have to be able to fix what you've done when you have
mhm.
power. So you have to own up to it. More along the lines of truth and reconciliation versus imprisonment or banishment kind of a thing.
So here's the thing, and it might come across a bit harsh, and if it does, well, then maybe it is.
Mhm.
But I tend to think the, well, that didn't work, so I'm not doing it again. That's a
Right.
very immature, knee-jerk sort of Nina, Nina, now I'm going to sulk in the corner type of
Yes.
response. And it's rather self-indulgent, and
Yes.
it avoids growth. You
Hmm.
cannot grow if you're pouting in a corner. Um, and if you don't look at what was my role in that, whatever the situation is. So
Hmm.
you mentioned a relationship didn't work, therefore I'm not having any more relationships. Well, okay, cool. Where did it fall apart? And
Hmm.
I think very often people think they see certain qualities in another person that don't actually exist. It's what they're looking for. And so they project it onto the person. It's not the
Right.
person's fault that you did that. So you get into a relationship and then you discover, oh, hey, that person's not how I thought they were. Now you're mad at them because they're letting you down, but actually it's your projection that was
Right.
incorrect. So if you don't look at it and see it for what it was, well, you're going to keep doing it, or you're going to be in a corner pouting, neither of which is growth. So, yeah, that penance thing, if that's the name you want to give that kind of
Mhm.
behavior, um, it's wildly unhelpful. In fact, it's the antithesis of helpful.
Right.
It's harmful because it's keeping you stunted. And I really ever think about self-pity. I'm not very good with it. I don't like
Mm.
it. Because it's, again, it's self-indulgent, right? you
Right.
can you can do it for 5 minutes and then the pity party needs to be over, and big person panties on, and let's go deal with things, because that's what you're here for,
Yeah.
right? That's what we're on the planet for, and that's our relationship with the other planes, the spiritual realm and so on.
Hmm.
They're not going to wait for you to sit in a corner and pout. Like, that's not interesting. Where's the growth?
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing, right? So everything we've unlocked, everything we've woken up, everything we've made easier for it to be requires people to drop that notion of self punishment, self abuse as a way of hiding from responsibility.
Yes, please do.
Because
Yes,
everyone is
that's
going to
the.
pick up, yeah, everyone who's going to pick up, who's going to be benefiting from this or will be the recipients of this, have to get their shadow side, not, they have to understand their shadow side and they have to work with their shadow side and they have to
I would
take
go as far
responsibility
as
for
to
their shadow.
say embrace,
Yes.
embrace your shadow side,
Yeah.
because it's a part of you.
Right.
It's like saying, if you want to banish the shadow side, that's like saying, well, I'll have daytime, but we
Hmm.
don't want any more nighttime. Um, no, I know there's a part of the world where that happens every now and then, but it's not how it works. And the shadow side is often, it's constructed by you, and it's protecting you from
Yeah.
something quite often. So you need to go to it, not away from it, and work with it and find out, what is it protecting you from, and can you handle that now?
Yes. So all that to say, embrace your shadow side. All the whole talk of penance to say,
Mhm.
embrace your shadow side.
Mhm.
Now,
Yes.
and to let the listeners, so they know they're not in this alone. We've said, power doesn't corrupt, power reveals. And so one of my hangups with astral projection is, what will it reveal about me when I do it? Because part of me, I still have to do work on my shadow side.
We all have to do work on our shadow side. You'll always have to do that. So
Yes.
that's that. I don't see that as something that's going to prevent you from astral travel. I think you need to travel to find out
Yes.
the things that you're asking the questions about.
Yes. And that's exactly it. That's what part of my week was like. The first part of the week was, okay, well, let's see what you're actually where you are in that and what you can do. And like I said, I haven't quite gotten to coming right out, but then it was, I see. Your thing is that you're referring to me, obviously, that I worry, what do I do with power? And so, and astral projection is, while it's a skill, it is still a power to do something, the capacity to do something. And what can I do with this capacity? I'm trying to think about that.
Well, first thing that leaps to mind is observation.
Yes,
You can observe, you can absorb, you can learn. Um, you don't have to do anything. You can simply be.
yes. And it was awesome because you clicked into the next thing that needed to be talked about. Because I also spent half my week going, what's the point in learning any of these things? Like, because in my head, right? And this might be something the listeners come up with because we're not giving like full details. We're just saying, like, this is what happened, this is what's going on, this is how you should look at it. And part of my thing is like, okay, so people remember from last episode, there was a discussion about now it's my time to learn earth magic, right? From my ancestors, or at least
Mhm.
the ancestral magical practitioners of my ancestors. And one of my thoughts during the week was, again, so what? Just like with the dragon wanting to do. And then, of course, we did all these spells. So, but so it came to me again. It's like I already have a foot in both worlds. So, am I doing it for communication? No, because I'm already there. And the only way I don't notice a spirit is if they hide from me intentionally. So, communication is there. And again, if they need to do something, like, well, I'm already casting spells now. But part of my brain is like, what are we doing now that's different? And obviously the intellectual part of me goes, yes, you were just given an example of why you should do it. You know that there's a purpose for it, but a part of me is still, if I'm gonna start putting investing all this energy into it, you know what part of it actually is? Like, what's in it for me?
You know, right from our first episode,
Yeah,
you have wanted to know
yes,
what's next
yes.
and what does it look like and how's that going to work and where does it go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for you personally,
Right.
the big thing that we've been building here
Yeah.
is you letting go
Mm-hmm.
of the need to know those things and even the
Absolutely.
need to ask the question, because what's the purpose or what isn't the purpose? Like, why wouldn't you do it? You can just flip that question and it doesn't matter, right?
And I did that this
Like,
week.
perfect.
Yeah.
Because our need to know gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's like, put a pin in that, ladies and gentlemen, because the need to know what's next, the need to know how things are going to work out, the attachment to outcome,
Mm-hmm.
basically, is the thing that keeps you stuck.
Yep.
Because if you don't want to move until you know what's next, you're not going to move because you'll never know what's next. You can't know what's next. You can have an idea of what you think it might be,
Mm-hmm.
and that's as close as any of us can be, right? Because we don't, the future didn't happen yet. It's not, it doesn't exist. It's not been created.
Right.
So you can do things that will take you in a certain direction, as long as the Buddha would say, causes and conditions are there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can do certain things. And if you don't do the things, if you say, well, what's the point? I'm not going to do it. Somebody else will do it for you. They'll map that out for you. And personally, I prefer to be in charge of the steering wheel myself as much as possible. But
Right.
what's around the corner? You don't know. I don't know. Nobody's going to know. So anyone that's listening, this is for you as well. You really do some meditation on letting go of what's next, what's the outcome. And I mean, I had a very physical, very real,
Mm-hmm.
visceral experience with this recently, where I was having a lot of trouble with a particular person at work who makes it her mission to make me look bad every day if she can. And I don't think it's working too well myself, but
Right.
it's a thing for her. And I was so attached to the outcome of not losing my job. I was so afraid of that that it kept me in a place of fear and stuckness. And
Right.
once I got to the point where I just didn't give a damn anymore, like, fine, fire me tomorrow, whatever. That power came back to me, and that person holds no cards now. There's no power. She could try what she likes and it falls
Right.
flat. It's like shooting an arrow that just drops on the ground and never reaches the target. And the difference is you don't care what the outcome is. I don't know what it's going to be. Doesn't matter. It's immaterial. It's not going to touch me. And that is the place where you can make progress from.
Mm.
Whatever the question is, whatever the thing is you're held stuck with. So if that's in the spiritual realm, I can't do any
Mm.
magic until I know it's going to work,
Right.
or can't do magic until I know it's going to be good, in air quotes. Then you won't do anything because you can't know that. You can
Right.
only do it and see.
Yes. And that's
So
kind
this
of,
is actually
yeah.
where that FAFA thing,
Right.
around and find out,
Yeah.
that's actually a good thing. Like, yeah, do that.
Yeah.
Try it and find out.
That's the thing. That's yeah. So as I am being the avatar for the listeners in this particular moment, but it is like it's the do 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 things, do explore.
Mhm.
Because one of the things I did ask myself is that, like, well, that I asked myself, one of the things I've kind of lived by in my spiritual work is if not me, someone else. But I'm already conditioned for this. I've already been trained for this. So why would I suddenly leave it to someone else who doesn't have the training? And if you believe in the pre-life contract idea, well, then I'm already pre-contracted to this. I've already decided on this. So then, and if I can't trust me, who can I trust? If I can't trust me to make a good decision for me, who am I trusting?
You know, Actually, the idea of contracts,
Mm-hmm.
soul contracts that you arrive with,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great topic,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And I would think that because I've got some opinions on it. But my thought on soul contracts is having them makes so much sense because some people come into your life, you get a lesson from them, and then they go away again. And it might not be a fun lesson, or it might be,
Right.
but they're here and then they go. Well, what was that about? Well, you had a contract with that person. They said, sure, I'll come and help you with this thing. And that's all they're here to do, right? And some people are here to really show you the negative side of some aspect of life. Others come in to bring sunshine and light and to
Mm-hmm.
show you that aspect of life. It's up to you what you do with it. But if you think of the whole thing as a movie, you are the star player, and then you have these bit players coming in,
Right.
right? And they all have their roles to play, and then they toddle off again. However, that loss or disappearance or ending of that situation comes about, again, that will bring its own sort of learning for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the soul contracts, it makes absolute sense because you are also doing that for other people.
Yes.
You show up in their lives, and maybe somebody's come across this podcast, for example, and they're like, oh, wow, I really needed to hear that. Or, some kind of thing from listening to this. Well, that was the point. That was the purpose. It was a contract, fulfilled the contract, off you toddle.
Right.
And it makes sense to me that we have soul contracts.
Yeah. Someone's going to say, oh, well, I guess I'm going to say something along the lines of, so it's time to fulfill your contracts. We have laid the groundwork, or we have set the scene. I mean, not just us. There's other people working on this too, but we have done our
Well, the
part to
scene
set
is
the scene.
set.
Yeah.
The scene is set. I mean, the world is a dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
This I've been saying this for quite some time now, and now more and
Mm-hmm.
more people are saying it too. But it is an obvious dumpster fire, and out of that fire, there's destruction and there's also creation. So
Right.
you can sit in the corner and pout and say, this is terrible, world's on fire, I'm not coming out until it stops. Or you can pick up whatever it is that's been laid down for you and run with it. What is that? What can you do? Because there's always something you can do.
Right.
And if magic is your thing, first of all, you'll know because it calls to you. You
Right.
wouldn't be listening to us if it didn't call to you. That's my thought anyway. I doubt it. So then how does that look for you? And my mind goes to your mom, funnily enough,
Yes.
because and she's come up a few times for me this week. Not only because I've seen stuff she said, but also
Yeah.
I've been thinking about her now and then.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and the image that I have is that for her, her magic is following her Catholicism,
Yeah.
using what she's already got. That's how it looks for her.
Mm.
What she's doing doesn't need to look the
Right.
way we do it.
Right.
And for her to want that, yes, okay, because it's shiny, something different, but it's not necessary. She's already got it. She's already doing it, and go more. Do more of that
Right.
is what I've been getting all week. Is like
Mm.
something I wanted to say to her was do more of what you're good with. Do
Right.
more of what speaks to you. It doesn't have to fit in anybody else's box. So that's glad I got to say that because that's been sitting on me all week. So
Okay. I'm gonna pass that message along to her when we're done. Uh yeah. No, I lost my train. Oh, I was gonna tease about her buying your book, but
I'm delighted,
yeah,
of course. But yes, and the book for the listener that
yeah,
may not have discovered it yet is called Aligned and Unapologetic. And it's your human design. It's how you can be aligned and unapologetic. But fair warning, it is heavy duty. There's a lot of information packed in that. And you need to have your body graph
mm,
to find you in there. And if you want coaching with what to do with this information, that is something I do. That is my happy space. But the information is in the book. So it's
right,
not like it's incomplete. Oh, there's a ton in there. You just have to spend time going through it. And again, for the listener that buys the book, get sticky notes of one color and put those sticky notes
mm,
wherever you are in the book. Because you might want to do somebody else's chart later and you'll need a different color for them. So that's the tip
yeah,
that I would give because relationships between the two charts are fascinating. I love that part of working with human design. And if you've messed around with a bunch of different rainbow colors for yourself because it's like, well, this is the head and this
mm,
is the heart and this is, then you're going to be completely lost and you'll have to start again.
yeah. All right. There is what else is there? There's a new producer on the show, so I don't know if I'm just not in tune properly. It's
Okay.
actually
Well,
interesting.
I was just going to say, while we wait for that to come in, happy Beltane to those who've
yes.
celebrated.
Mm, yes. What was I going to say? Because I've said before, right? On Reddit, I'm part of a subreddit for Hecate, and that was brought up.
As
So
it
I'm going
would
to tell
be.
everyone that. Oh, yeah. So what I was going to say was like, so this new spirit, uh, she did the thing of, I didn't realize I was talking with her until I realized I was talking with her. It was one of those things where I was just kind of in kind of a, I guess, a napitative state, for lack of a better way of putting that. And all of a sudden I realized, hey, I'm talking to someone.
Hmm. Okay.
And it was like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Now I can't miss it. Now I can't miss the presence anymore. But that's how this one came to be. I also had no idea other than talking about debriefing and penance. Didn't have any more information than that about this episode. But going forward, it's about people answering the question of what's in it for me, uh, learning your or embracing your dark side, and possibly one more thing. But
Which I'm sure will show up.
right,
with what's in it for me, I wouldn't.
Mm.
My thought is not to spend too much time worrying about it, though,
Yeah.
because it's more a case of, does this align with me?
Yes.
Um, if you feel excited about it, if it's like, oh yeah, that's 100% me, that's the thing I love to do. If you the thought of, oh, I have a ritual to do tonight,
Mm.
for example, is that, oh man, again? Or is that, oh, I can't wait. How many hours have
Mm.
I got? Can I do it sooner? If those are very different energies. So if you've got the, oh, I'm so excited, then there's your answer. That's what's in it for you. You're
Mm.
aligned. Go do it. The the more information you look for, the longer it's going to take you to go do it.
Right. Well,
We
the
have a
one,
finite period of time on this planet,
yes.
and tomorrow's never promised. So what can you do today?
Yeah. You know, I'm reminded again of the joy of having you on the podcast is my vocabulary has gone through a lot of evolution. And when I use expressions, it's because the meaning has transformed for me, but they don't necessarily match the common parlance for everyone else. So when I say what's in it for me, I don't mean it from I don't know, selfish perspective. It's just literally, this is how things work. What do you do? What does it do for you? Like, as you know, so that you can adapt and learn to work with it better. Kind of that
Ah,
when I think of those, like my vocabulary, as negative as it can sound sometimes to people, I've gotten rid of a lot of the negativity out of it. I just haven't changed the wording because the words have had new meaning
okay.
for me.
Okay. But then that's helpful because when I bring it up,
Yes.
people can go with me on that and be
Right.
like, well, this is what I understand it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you're looking at it positively,
Mm-hmm.
the need to know what's next holds a person still. And
Yes, it does.
I I tell you what, I am
Mm-hmm.
100% here dealing with that. It's it's in my design to be impatient. It doesn't mean it's there, therefore I'm impatient
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. It means that's the thing I have to work on, right? And that's something that I find people, usually by the time they get to human design, they're past this point.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's like, well, I have this trait, therefore that's what it is. There's nothing I can do. But is it really? If you're creative and need meditation in order to be creative, yeah, that's your process. That's how that works. But if you've got trait such as being impatient, well, how's that working for you? Is that making good life choices? Typically not. And I've had some doozies myself.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're impatient, you don't have all the information before you move that you could have. So there's a dividing line between getting enough information and wanting all the information. It's like
No,
that point
yeah.
where I gotta hang on a bit so that I at least know there's water at the bottom when I jump, right? You need to know that much. But how deep is it? Or where do I go to dry off on the bank? That kind of stuff
Mm.
comes later. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say or add to it, because I was kind of inspired when you were speaking, is so we're both hermit.
Hermit's a
Hermit part's the
networker.
important part here. So we want to play with the tools we're given to see what they can do. But this is a case where you can't play with the tools until you're certified in the tools. So you don't even get to play with them until you've learned enough to know how dangerous the tools are to just play with.
It might depend on what you're playing with because, yeah, a lot of the stuff that I do,
Mm-hmm.
you do it and then you see how it goes. And if something needs tweaking, you tweak it.
Mm-hmm.
But I I don't necessarily know particularly what I'm doing until I do the thing. I just have to have belief that that is correct for me to go do.
Yeah.
So it can be very, particularly for
Mm-hmm.
somebody who wants certainty. And the four
Mm-hmm.
line, the
Right.
networking side, one of the things that goes with that
Mm-hmm.
is which shows up with you a lot actually,
Yes.
is you need to know what's next before you let go of what you're doing. So if you were switching jobs, you would
Hmm.
have the next job lined up before you leave the last one. If you're sometimes actually relationships too, before you leave one relationship, you got your eye on the next one, you know where you're going. It's not a character flaw, it's the need for security, and that's how it looks. And that is common for people with the four line, wherever the four line comes up with. So I have that too. And when you know it, you can look out for it and be like,
Right.
oh, am I setting this up just so that I have another thing to go to
Mm.
next? Or is this legit what's right for me to do? So just think of the complexity there, right?
Right.
You're you have the four line that says, before I leave this, I got to go to that. I got to have that set up. But impatience means you got to learn patience. So where do you put that in the middle of that whole four line thing, right? It can get
Yeah.
complicated, which is why, it's a process. It's
Well,
not, oh, I got the answer. That's it. I'm good. Yeah,
yeah.
good
So
luck
you,
with that.
you you bring up something interesting because whereas that's true what you say, it's never happened in practice because when it's time to move to the next thing, it's time for me to move to the next thing, no matter what I'm feeling on the matter. So I constantly leave jobs without having a plan. I constantly leave relationships without having a plan because it's time to move. Because the one thing, regardless of my, uh, or I should say, the one underlying factor about me is I follow the flow because it's the only thing I trust.
Okay.
So
So
going
that's
on
some
that
good
sense of
learning you've done.
security, right? So following that sense of security, since the flow is the only thing I trust, the outward manifestation is that it looks like I'm not behaving like a 2-4. It looks like I'm throwing caution to the wind all the time.
But the urge is there.
Right.
And I've certainly, I mean, the listener won't have heard it on the
Mm,
podcast probably because usually in a conversation beforehand, there's a sort of,
mm,
okay, so this is what we're talking about, or
mhm.
this is where it's going. And it often doesn't. And sometimes it does, but not the way you thought it
Yeah.
was going to.
Right.
And I just find it fun because
Mhm,
that's not an area that I feel the need to know where it's going. In fact, I do better when I don't know.
mhm.
I did podcasts every week for a year, where it was just me.
Right.
Sometimes I would have a guest on, but mostly it was just me. I didn't have a game plan. I had enough to give the
Mm,
show notes to the people who wanted to put it up ahead of time, but
right.
it was kind of loosely based on, if you will, and not knowing, I did way better than if I tried to have it mapped out. So that 2-4 can show up. It bites you now and then. Every now and
Yeah.
then you're just like,
Well,
oh, I see where you came
I was
from.
gonna say, if it helps people to know, season one took 7 months to do, and there's 7 episodes, and some were like one behind the other, and the first 4 episodes were in a row. I recorded in a row, and then the last three took months to do, and it was even a big gap in between when I did the last episode and when we started season two. Because after I did episode 7, I was like, this isn't working for me this way. And that's fully scripted, making sure all the work, everything is done properly, trying to have as much control over it as possible. And it didn't work. And it took 7 months to do 7 episodes. And then at the end of 7 months, I was like, I'm not doing it like this anymore.
Mhm. And that's an example of the 2-4 balance shifting, where
Yeah.
you tried doing it like a four, but the
Mm-hmm.
two actually works better for you, as it
Yeah.
does for me, where it's like, I don't know, I'm just going to go with it. And,
Oh, shit. That
and
reminds
that's how
me.
it rolls.
Happy
Yes.
anniversary because this marks pretty much a year since we recorded our first episode.
Wow.
It would take a couple of
Woo,
days.
that's amazing. And
Yeah.
right around Beltane as well.
Yeah.
how fortuitous.
Yeah.
That's the word I think I'm looking for. The size, in case people can't hear it, I have dogs rumbling.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah. So it's been a year of having Michaela on the podcast. Just before I forget. So it's a different, it's also another debrief, a whole year with Michaela.
Oh, I'm having fun. I love doing this. It's uh it's a happy spot in my day.
Yeah.
So, because
No, it is for
get
me
to
too.
talk about cool stuff.
Yeah.
Never know where it's going. It's fun.
Right. So for the listener, sorry, there was all the channels are silent, but it's still for the listeners. So this is your moment to look into yourself. This is your moment to you're moving into being whatever you want to call yourself, witches, wizards, shamans, oracles, whatever. Going forward from this episode, those of you who feel it, it's it. That is you. If you have doubts, just put them aside. Just go with the flow. Just do the thing you need to do. Message is probably for me as well. But this new spirit is kind of a what word am I looking for? I was going to jokingly say she's being a Michaela, but she's not.
Okay, we'll have to have a conversation about what that means later. But
Yeah.
yeah, and what's coming up for me right now is I've said it before, but the timing now too, I think.
Mm,
Be open to what it looks like. And meditation beforehand is often good, because it just sort of clears your mind from clutter, nonsense, whatever it is that's going on. And can I just say that meditation is not the Western typical
mm,
attempt at not thinking. Like you have a mind, therefore you think. You can't not think. The trick with meditation is you notice the thought, don't chase it. So if you have a thought of,
mm,
oh, I need to do a shopping list. Huh, that was interesting. Okay. And you let it go. You don't write the shopping list. You don't think about all the things you got to put
yeah.
on there. That's the idea with meditation. And if you need to keep bringing your focus back, focusing on the breath, just noticing your breath,
Mm,
paying attention to that is a great way to bring yourself back. And when you've done that for however long you feel the need to, could be 2 minutes, could be
mm,
10, could be longer, but not necessarily so. Um, and when you've done that, you're in a better state to know what you'd like to do next and do what you feel. So if that's lighting candles,
mm,
if that's getting cards, using a pendulum, like just go with it. It'll come.
yeah. I was going to
And you
say,
can make your own cards, right?
yes,
You can make your own
absolutely.
cards. You don't have to buy them.
That's right, absolutely. It's actually why, as an aside, it's why we have playing cards to begin with, because that was their actual original purpose.
Oh, okay.
And then it became a game.
Hmm. I did not know that.
That's
But I
that's what I
have.
keep hearing over and over and over again. Every time I look into the origin of playing cards, they're originally for divination.
Hmm. Well, there were a lot of different ways to sort of foretell what the future would be if you did A or B,
Hmm.
right? Decision making
Right.
and so on. In fact, Chinese in mainland China, at the very least, are extremely superstitious, if you will. They have a number of ways
Mm,
to yes, no, what should I do next? What's here? What's there? Um, and I've seen a number of those in action, and it's kind of cool. But I
mm.
also see that people really pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw one person put $50 in a donation box based on what the sticks had said at a Chinese temple.
Yeah. You know, so the first, what I would consider the true bit of guidance, which probably my mistake to say it that way, is that question is, when did this all begin? When did we start having these official superstitions, these official tools that we use to try to communicate with the divine?
In the
It,
beginning?
yeah, a lot of this is probably rhetorical, like to look into yourself, because I don't imagine the origins of it are recorded anymore, or at least we don't have access. We don't know where that information is. But has it always been a part of human beings? Has it always, or is it something we developed later on?
Oh, my suspicion is it's as old as time, like it's
Mm,
always been there. And it's been messed with by
right.
human beings all over the place and for various reasons. So, um, funnily enough, I was reminded at Beltane that if you look at the UK,
Hmm.
where I'm originally from, there are lots of rites and rituals at this time because that's where it originated. And people still do a whole bunch of them.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't destroyed by the advent of the Abrahamic religions.
Mm,
Those religions, the big ones, the main
mm,
ones, they came in and changed a lot of what was permissible by absorbing and then altering a lot of the sort of pagan rites.
right.
And pagan is basically nature,
Hmm.
right? So all things nature. And that was definitely there from the beginning. Any culture you look at, their first stories would go back to nature, which makes sense, really, right? Just imagine if you're sitting in your cave and the sun comes up in the morning. Well, what's that? What did that do? Where did that come from? And then it disappears. Well, is it coming back? Oh, it does. It comes back the next day. Well, what's that? And then there's lightning. Okay, where did the lightning come from? Did I do something to cause that? And off we go with all these different beliefs. So I really liked it when it rained. My crops grew. How do I make it rain again? And there's
Yeah,
these basic questions start a lot of religions, a lot of beliefs, and a lot of rituals in an attempt to bring that thing back again or connect with it.
because yeah, it's sort of been my notion for a long time that before or like at the beginning of all, blah, blah, blah. At the beginning of societies when they're able to communicate, uh, before there are shared communications across mass groups, before we have nations and tribes and stuff, there is your personal connection to the world.
Mhm.
And I've always kind of had this from things I've read, from just my looking at it. I was always under the impression that your own personal connection to the spirit world, so elemental stuff, elemental ideas, connections to nature, working with spirits who work with you specifically, that was the original way of communicating with the spirit world. That's the origins of magic, if you will.
Mm.
And then
Still very strong.
right. And so as groups got bigger, as we started having tribes, as we started having nations, then we started having religions to unify those practices. Now, since then, those things have evolved, and as with any organized system, the opportunists come in and make the changes that work for them
Hmm.
and help them keep their power. So
Hmm.
I would say that's probably not where things are, but I think it's common throughout the world because I always hear this. I've always part of my own research into it was there was discussions of, well, in the West they don't do that, and in the East they do this, and I'm like, no, pay attention. What you're talking about that is unique to the East and what you're saying is unique to the West is not unique to either of them. They're just different ways of showing the same thing. So like breath is breath. Whether you're going to call it chi, whether you call it spirit, whether you call it breath, breath is breath.
Hmm.
We all have it. We might work and explain it differently, but the concept is still there. That's my most basic
Mm.
example.
Well, it's a good one. I mean, we call the same thing by different names for sure.
Hmm.
I mean, there are commonalities when you look at the religions um, that are more of a personal conduct code than anything else.
Mm,
They're not really connecting to the spiritual in that way. So, be nice to your neighbor.
right.
Um, don't run off with your neighbor's wife and all that kind of thing. Don't kill people. These are sort of okay. If you want to live on the planet, this
Mm,
this is kind of a good
right.
guideline for how to be there and not screw things up, right? But none of that is actually a connection to the spiritual, which is interesting because it's the
Mm.
foundation certainly of the Abrahamic religions, but there's it's a fairly common theme really in the different religions that we know about these days, and yet it's not really connecting you anywhere.
Well, you this is kind of an amusement thing for me, but you brought up something. So the brother Eagle, as I like to call him, was trying to show me something about working with spirits. And so we kind of had a scenario going on where we're both flying. And so he takes his claws and grabs my hands, and we're doing that kind of spirally flight thing. My brain goes, "This is a mating ritual. What the hell are you doing?" And I kind of got a response of, "Just shut up and do it," right? Because the idea was this isn't a mating ritual. This is a bonding ritual. A mating ritual is a
Mm.
bonding ritual. So what we're doing is we're bonding. And I said, okay. And then, so when we bonded, I, I'll word it this way and we'll go from there. I felt like my senses were blunted. Like I couldn't see anymore once we bonded. Like we kind of morphed or kind of absorbed into each other. And I couldn't see
Mm.
anymore. And I couldn't, like, we were connected and we kind of made, like, a hybrid kind of a thing. But it was like, I can't see. I'm kind of losing my contact with the world around me. And so his answer was, not everyone can bond. Not every spirit can bond with every other spirit. Not here, anyways. Not in this on the earth in this plane, kind of a thing. Everyone has their thing to do, and some things are at cross purposes. So even if you wanted to bond, you couldn't bond them. And I thought, well, okay, that's a interesting lesson to learn. What that means, or what the foundation of that is, like it would be like the idea we need fire and we need water, but we can't necessarily directly combine them. But we can use both of them independently or even really close to each other. You know, we can boil
And the
water,
one
but if we
you
pour the
can boil
water on the fire, it
water,
puts the fire out.
right? Yeah, that's where my mind was going. So they have an effect on each other, but
Right,
they don't work well together in contact.
right. So part of it might be don't force things to be what they aren't. Don't force things to try to make them work together when they're not supposed to work together in that way.
Always a good plan.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was an
100%
interesting
agree with
lesson.
you on that.
Yeah.
100% agree with you on that. If there's anything that you are trying to force,
Mm,
um, better not. And that actually takes me back to saying your mom should really
mm.
consider looking more into Catholicism, less into other ways of doing things, because that's a natural flow for her,
Well,
from what I understand.
actually, since you've said that, I've been thinking about that because I think about what I tell her. But you're right. For her, she keeps falling back into what she knows.
Mhm.
And I try not
Because
to
that's her.
dissuade it. And throughout most of my life, I've never tried to really dissuade her from it. But I didn't want her blinded by it.
Right.
Right.
But if knowing what she knows,
Hmm.
knowing what she's heard from you,
Right.
and when she listens to this podcast, if she takes that and goes more into what she
Hmm.
knows and can do, that's powerful. That
Right.
takes it out of the okay, now the priest gets to call all the shots
Right.
business. And it puts her into, I know how this works and I can do it.
Right.
She has the power. She has the connection. She doesn't need the priest. She might want the connection with the
Hmm.
priest, and that's fine. That's cool. But you don't have to have it. So you don't have to have an intermediary to get
Right.
to the spirit world. So if Catholicism works for her, which it seems to, then armed with more knowledge, going
Right.
further into that makes it more powerful.
Right.
That's my thinking. But when she tries to come out of that and
Hmm.
do something different, she's never quite happy with it, is she? It's
No.
like, yeah, but this isn't quite working. And, I kind of like this over here.
Yes.
Well,
Well, her wording, how her flow functions, and that it's better for her in that way to use the metaphor she's comfortable with.
right. And then it becomes more clear
Yes.
because here's the thing, you can use cloudy metaphors that don't
Mm.
quite land, right? They don't quite
Mm.
make sense, and nothing is gained. It's
Right.
just, it seeds on barren land. It's not going anywhere. But every now and then, there'll be a metaphor that's like, oh, I see the point. I see where we're going with this. All
Hmm.
right. Well, that's what you need more of. Go in that direction. There's no wrong or right for anybody other than what works for you, what feels natural, and what's comfortable, right?
Right.
If I went into a Catholic church and tried doing the various things that were involved in that, it wouldn't go well, because that's not my comfort zone by any means. And I would feel like a fish out of water.
Hmm.
It would just be kind of weird, right? I know enough to hold a conversation on the subject, but could I get in there and do the things your mum can do?
Right.
No. She's the adept, and I would be the novice. But it's not something I particularly want to be a novice in. So I'll stick to my stuff, right? And that's what I'm saying for your mom is she should stick to her stuff
Right.
because she's adept at it. She knows what she's doing. Do more of that. Go deeper. Go more into that.
Yeah. Well, because I had this discussion already with someone else, and I think I had said I had three spirits to give to, or not to give, but to teach their people. And one of the spirits was a bear. But the person I was talking to was like, that imagery of a bear is not there. I said, well, here's the deal. You're more familiar with elephants. And for you, elephants feel the same role that a bear does. I said, as far as, I talked it over with the spirit. And as far as I'm concerned, if you want to view them as an elephant, go ahead. Use the elephant as your metaphor for the bear instead of the bear.
It's
So,
whatever's meaningful for
yeah.
the individual for sure. And that's, I think, the when you look at the pagan
Mhm.
view of religion or view of connection with the world, that's what people would do. I mean, it's different in the southern hemisphere than the northern
Mhm.
hemisphere because the weather patterns are different, the geography is
Right.
different, the animals are different. So how you
Right.
relate to that is going to be different.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. So it's when everybody tries to cram into the same box and, buy the books and say, okay, I got to do it this way. And, that's wrong. This is right. It's a very limiting way of looking at things to have the that's wrong. This is right.
Yeah.
Does it work for you? Does it not? Does it feel correct for you? Does it not? Those are the questions. It's
Yeah.
not, is it wrong or right?
And we did touch on it, right? Because we did talk about, if you're going to collaborate with someone, make sure your metaphors match. So you don't have
Right.
to use the same deity, but as long as the deities mean the same things and have the same duties or whatever.
Energy,
Yes, the
the
same energy.
same energetic
Yeah.
direction.
Then use the
Yeah.
metaphor. Don't worry if they match. Don't worry if they're not the same entity. Just as long as they do the same thing. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
nice.
There's just different ways of looking at that. Are you all pulling in the same direction, if you would? Um, and that's typically what we want, right?
Yeah. This makes me think. So, okay. So last episode, it was the helping the Earth Mothers get their reascension. But since we're going along with the Catholic thing, if that means you require either Mary, Mother of Jesus, or you need Mary Magdalene as an imagery giver, if that's going to be your Earth Mother image,
Oh, yeah. Entirely. I mean, it's literally what works for you. It's nobody else's business, right? It doesn't matter if other people have the same view or if other people would judge you for it. I
Right.
mean, that's so unimportant. I can't even give it a list at the like a place at the bottom of the list. It's not there. It's completely immaterial, nobody's business. So you can tell people about it if
Right.
you want. I mean, I have some practices that I'm not prepared to go public with, um, simply because that's not what they're for. And then there are other things that I'm perfectly happy to sort of talk about. So that's, I think, the same for everybody. You got stuff
Mhm.
that doesn't need to be in the public arena and other things that do, but other people's judgments, nah, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Take your metaphors, run with them, use them. What was I going to say? Because I have the habit of, I'll put it this way, forcing secularism on the spirits I work with.
Okay, that's an interesting visual. And how
If a
does that
spirit
go down?
comes, um, probably frustrating for them. Didn't I just tell you I was the spirit? Well, but it's funny because it wasn't until I was actually working with like where spirits actually came to me and said, no, no, this is who I am. You know, they're also the ones who won't let me say their names. But until they actually come out
Hmm.
and said, hey, this is who I am, I was like, hold on a second. Aren't these just fables and stories? Like, why are you telling me this name? You know, I don't buy into that. So it's like, yeah, it's yes, to have a secular magic user is an interesting concept, but
Yeah, no, I was about to make a point on that and it
go
just
ahead.
went
Oh,
gone.
well, but it's also for me, part of it is getting to the foundation of things. So
Uh-huh.
someone can show up with any name they'd like, right? But that doesn't tell me what they are for me. Like even if you say to me, "Oh, I'm Michaela," I'm like, "Yeah, okay, but what does that mean?" Because I could call you Sue, I could call you Barbara. You're still going to be who you are. So part of
Yeah,
how
they
we look
wouldn't
at
fit
things,
though. The names wouldn't fit though.
no, no. But I'm just saying, like to me, it doesn't matter what kind of name a person gives me of who they are. I still have to see them in action. I still have to get a sense of their flow. I still have to, and then later I'll tag the name onto it, and then that name will have power for me in that regard.
Hmm. That's an interesting way of looking at the name that something or someone gives you because uh, that would be an area to investigate, I think. It's like,
But part
why
of
does
it,
it
right?
matter to you?
Right. But part of it is so again, trained by Trickster, right? So
Mm.
Trickster has showed up as with a bunch of different identities, only for me to later go, yeah, but I get your flow. I know it's you. Like
Right.
it's shown up as, and I'm trying to remember if this is the proper name for it. So it showed up as the Sumerian god of the sun, Shamash. I don't know if I pronounced that properly. And one, I don't know enough about this god other than to know its name and its basic, was it sphere of influence? But I don't know anything beyond that. So you could show up as whatever the hell you want to, and put that name on it, and I wouldn't know any different. But part of that play, right, was to get me to identify spirits by their energy and not by the titles they give me or by the names they give me who they are.
Hmm. It feels like that's a whole topic to investigate.
It is. It's one of those things that's harder to it's hard to explain because you have to understand that something that's been so deceptive to you is actually trying to teach you a skill to how to look past deception.
Or how not to give full credence to what you're told before you know it to be
Right.
true.
Yes.
Could be also. Well, that's kind of biblical, thinking about it. There's the temptation. I'm fishing a little here, but I think there's temptation in there that's disguised as something else. I can go with Buddhism more easily. So let's go with Buddhism for a
Okay, go
second.
ahead.
I kind of have this shadowy perception of it being biblical, but in
Mm-hmm.
Buddhism, which is older than the New Testament,
Mm-hmm.
certainly, um, Mara was tempting Buddha away from enlightenment
Mm-hmm.
just before the Buddha became enlightened. And so he, using the gender given,
Mm-hmm.
he sent 5 daughters to tempt Buddha away from his meditation and the approaching nirvana.
Right.
And that, of course, failed, as we know. But that was Mara
Mm-hmm.
coming as 5 beautiful women
Right.
to tempt, right? And isn't there like the 40 days in the desert? There's some
Yeah.
kind of temptation going on
Yeah.
that's not what
That's why
it
we do
seemed.
Lent. Yeah.
So, but it was not what it seemed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The temptations were so that's kind of a theme of, yeah, well, I'm saying it's this, but it's not really this, it's that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's connected, but it was kind of the biblical stuff was trying to come
Yeah.
through, but it was awfully shadowy. And then the Buddha, I got a very clear
Well, that's the thing,
one for
right?
that.
It's actually one of my kind of ongoing issues with other people who practice magic. I'm all like, where was the, where was this foundational? Where was this, having to go through the darkness to find the light idea? Because usually when I read people's stories online, it's always like you're taking this awfully for granted, you know, that you're working with
Hmm.
who you say you're working with.
Well, that's their journey, though.
Yeah.
They got to figure that out. So I don't
But
know.
it's
It's one of
wise.
those things that
Yeah.
wouldn't be on my radar too much, simply because it's
Yeah.
if you think that's what you've got,
Mm.
then go find out.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like part of and the benefit of having you on the podcast is now I've been able to kind of come back and accept beings for who they are. That idea that beings are who they are, and even if they're not exactly, even if the name isn't the name, like I said, right? The name you can share and the name you get
Mhm.
not to share. Those two things can
Right.
exist at the same time. It's not a deception. It's a how magic works. It's not a deception because I got used to looking for deception. Now
Well,
part of
there
it is
can
now
also be
looking for
different
yeah,
aspects can be given different
right,
names as well. So,
yes,
for example, going to there are different mythologies, of course, but
mm-hmm,
Lilith was created whole and complete and
mm-hmm,
able to produce children either with a male partner or on her own,
mm-hmm.
right? This is the story of Lilith. And wow, really? Okay. I may be able to come back to that, but I can't give it to you right now.
Okay.
That's just, oh, okay. I really wanted to tell that one. On it.
Well, I will argue this, right? Or not argue this. I will offer this up. So, to my understanding of alchemy, they look for the divine hermaphrodite, the combination of the
Okay.
divine and the masculine.
Got it. Got it. It came back. It came back. Thank you.
But
You did that for me. So when Lilith left the Garden of Eden, which was
mm-hmm,
actually not on this planet, but when
right,
Lilith left, not kicked out, left,
mm-hmm,
and refused to go back, she was so upset with all the reasons she'd left and the rather ham-fisted attempts to get her back
mm-hmm,
again. She was so felt so abandoned and abused by it all that she kind of took herself to a cave and really focused on how angry and upset and betrayed she was.
right,
And when she went to sleep, in her sleep, she created Samael. And
right,
Samael is the male embodiment of
mm-hmm,
all of those awful things that Lilith was
right,
feeling. And we've mentioned this with the tulpas, right?
yes,
So once Samael is created, she doesn't have control over Samael anymore. But it's from the same person.
yes,
So what you have is Samael is that aspect of Lilith.
right,
It's so yeah, it's an aspect of.
yes,
So if Samael appeared and said, "My name is Lilith,"
mm-hmm,
yes, before.
Hmm.
Before you became this form, that was your name, but now
Right.
you're Samael. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is all the negativity, all the rage and the sense of betrayal and so on was distilled into this one
Hmm.
being, this one aspect. So is it bad? I'm going to say no, but awfully troublesome because
Right.
we all have that side. We all have that part,
Hmm.
and we don't all get to sort of say, okay, I'm going to separate it from me and put it over there and give it a form. Um, and I don't know that I would recommend people start working on that,
Hmm.
honestly, because I think we could end up in a really hot mess.
Well,
But yeah.
but that's part of the thing, right? There's the stories and there's what is. Because some of the
Mhm.
stories are metaphors and warnings about what can happen if you don't, like in this case, right? Creating Samael. If you don't control yourself, this is the consequence. But like,
Or if you focus on it so
right,
much.
so much that this becomes, I think, what was I going to say? It almost kind of makes me wonder how much stories were training for magic users and how many got into the just the general public. Like, you know how we talk on this podcast, some of the things we're talking about is like everyone can use it, but some of the stuff is specifically for those who are going to be using magic. But some of those
Right.
lessons can be carried over into normal, like because you're human, so those things carry over into just normal human conversations and normal human behavior. But we're still discussing a lot of it from a perspective of this how it affects your magic, or this how it can affect you going forward in your spiritual work and your magic work. So I wonder how
Well,
many of
there's a
those
lot of
stories are about, listen, if you use this magic, this what could happen.
there's a lot of blending, right, between the lines. Of what's useful in the physical plane and what's useful elsewhere. And who's to say one aspect is only useful in one place, right? So there's,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's just a lot, there's so much out there. You can spend your entire life examining it, looking at it, working with it, thinking about it. And that's probably what I'm going to do.
And this is something important because the quiet guidance I'm getting is the for you guys listening, look into this, look at the old stories you know and look at it from a magician's perspective.
Mm,
Like, and if you need something to get a start with, think about alchemy, right? A lot of things are hidden in in symbolism in alchemy. Like you can be talking about Jupiter or Mercury or whatever, but those are all things, symbols hiding what they're talking about, the knowledge they want to impart, but they don't necessarily want everyone to have it because not everyone is ready for it. So it becomes hidden in symbols.
hmm.
So
Absolutely.
look over the stories you know and see what you can tease out for yourself from a magic user's perspective.
Mm. That's a really good point. Yeah. And in a mundane sense, what it makes me think of is we still do that. We do that all the time. If you look at, I'm a behavior analyst. So if I started talking to you in behavior analyst terms, you'd probably glaze over very, very
Mhm.
quickly. I would sound terribly, I don't know what how I want to express that, but it would sound like I was being rather elitist
Right.
because that's exactly what it's for. That is the point. I know these words because I got this degree and I studied these things, and you don't, Nina Nina. Now, you could learn it if you really felt the need, or you could find somebody who can give it to you in plain English,
Mm.
and that's if they understand it well enough. Because you know that saying that
Yes.
if you understand enough to give it in the technical terms, then you don't really understand it. If you can explain it to a 5-year-old, you've got it.
Right.
And so we do that now all the time. All these different sort of areas of psychology, for example, that have their own language. What a pile of bullshit. It's not necessary to have different language. It's just that it separates people out, right? Well, I have this language,
Yeah.
so I know this thing. And if you're working with magic, well, there's certain words or uses of the words that you're going to apply that somebody else might not know to. Um, I don't know that that one's so much necessarily elitist as it's a way of first of all, saving yourself from persecution at certain
Mm,
times in history,
yeah,
and at other times, stopping people who may be not ready to use it from using it too soon.
yeah. Well, that's, I was going to say, speaking to the point of being elitist. So I grew up Catholic and went to a French church, and the word transubstantiation, I'd never heard of it until I was watching something, a documentary, and then someone brought it up, and I'm like, what the hell is transubstantiation? I've been Catholic my whole life, and I've never heard of this word until I heard it explained, and then I'm like, okay, well, I know that. Why did you have to make up a word for it? Like, why did you need
Uh-huh.
this Latin or whatever word to?
Because the word is accurate
Yeah,
and it means the concept it's describing.
yeah,
The thing is, most people don't get taught that word. And that's the difference, right? Like there's in Judaism, you have the secret name of God.
right.
Lilith knew the secret
Mhm.
name of God. And so only those who have it, right?
Yeah.
Nobody else has that word. Um, is it elitist or is it saving something extremely powerful from being
Well,
used
and
until
there
it's
is that
supposed to be
balance.
used,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So that in higher realms than this one, yes, there is that balance. In this one, I think it's just straight up elitist nonsense. But
Well, it
um
becomes that to those who don't understand.
yeah, but honestly, I
Well,
mean, I work in the field and I just
yeah,
find that,
but
if
that's
we
kind
could
of what I
just put
mean,
it in
right?
plain English, that'd be good.
Yeah. Like there's word like, through researching things on my own, there's words I discovered that, oh, well, I can't not use that word now because it
Right.
describes the concept and it describes it with one word. Yeah.
Exactly. And when that happens, it's it becomes one of those things where people who don't know it yet are going to
Yeah.
look at you and say, "Oh, get you, ooh,
Yeah.
la-di-da." But on the other hand, it encapsulates what you're trying to say.
Right. And then you get, I always think of, is it Don King, the boxing promoter?
Mhm.
He always used big words, but none of them were the actual word. Like they were
Huh?
actually, one of my nephews used to do this too. He would use big words. They weren't wrong per se, but they weren't usually used in the context he was using them in, even though you could use them that way. That's not how they were normally
Right.
used. So I would ask him, I said, did anyone ever point this out to you? And he goes, no, everyone was just impressed I had the big words. I'm like, oh, because I find that annoying.
Makes me
Could you stop it? But
makes me think of Princess Bride.
yeah, yeah,
That word does not mean what you
inconceivable.
think it means.
Yeah. Yeah. Some words become an attempt to show how smart you are by kind of showing you're not as smart as you think you are by doing it.
Right.
But then sometimes it's just, you know, to use the French
So
expression,
it's
c'est le mot juste.
important. It's important, though, then, that magical concepts don't end up in the mouth of someone who's going to use it, not knowing what they're doing with
Right.
it. So that I think you just illustrated exactly
Mm.
why some of the stories will contain information that most people will miss, and some people will get and be able to run with it. It's a filter, if you will.
Yeah. That's what I said.
You
That's why I
ready,
like
so
the
you got it.
alchemy as the example.
Yeah, you ready, so you get it. And if you're
Hmm.
not ready, you don't get it. But it's there.
Yeah. It's there. It's in
Yeah,
the
there's so
open.
much
Everyone can
there.
read it. But if you don't know how to translate it, it doesn't matter.
Mhm. Yeah,
If you don't go through the effort to learn the symbolism of those things, then you won't know how to use them. And therefore, the world is safe from your lack of
from the
understanding and your
misuse.
lack of behavior or your attempt to do things that you don't understand.
Right. So yeah, I suppose back to our earlier
Mm.
point of whether you need to know things or not, some element of you know what you know enough to know to stay out of trouble with it, put it that way. Um yeah. The thing with this episode, I think, is a lot of what we're saying is very gray area stuff.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, it varies from person to person. Um
Well, that's pretty much been the podcast.
Yeah, but I mean, pretty heavily so this time.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
because everyone is going to have their personal connection to what's been introduced or what has been set in motion, we'll say.
mm,
So everyone's going to have their own metaphors. Everyone's going to have their own way of looking at it. Everyone's going to have their own level of use of those things. Like not everyone is going to be on the world stage doing something. And not that that matters as a better thing or a worse thing. Just not everyone is going to be doing things to the same degree other people are going to be doing things. So everyone needs their metaphors. Everyone needs their understanding. And some people need to be able to bridge the gaps.
mhm. Yeah, it's just such an interesting journey. Like I'm excited for people who are trying new things and
Yeah.
learning more about themselves in the process. It's so exciting.
Well, and I was going to say, right, you can't do what we did and not like you can't do what we did and not expect things to change in the world.
Right. Well, that's the point.
So everyone has to play their part. There's a connection here. And I'm hoping by all that is holy that the people listening will click into what they need to click into. Because there is too much to just sit here for one episode and say, okay, this is this metaphor, this is this metaphor, this is this metaphor, this is this metaphor. Oh, you don't need this metaphor. Okay, you, this type of person, forget this. You, this type of person, make sure to pay attention to this. You, this type of person. Better to, I guess, in this case, to put the onus on the people to figure it out for themselves so that they step into their power with understanding.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a theme that's been
Mm,
going through today's actually is going with what you already know and are comfortable with and
mm,
building on it.
yeah,
So I mentioned your mom and
right,
Catholicism a couple of times because that was big for me this week, that she needs to do more of that. But I also demonstrated it by trying to get the thread of sort of temptation being disguised from one
mm,
source, and it wasn't really
right,
coming to me through the biblical way, but I could get it straight away from
mm-hmm,
Buddhism, right? So,
right,
and anybody that's listened to the podcast a few times will know that I inevitably end up talking about Buddhism at some point.
right,
Um, Not because I'm trying to convert anybody, but simply because it speaks to me. That is a direction that I can look at and understand, and I feel a connection to. So it plays a role in how I do things, how I see things. That would be my natural inclination as a witch to still look toward Buddhism for a lot of my metaphors,
right,
actually, a lot of the life lessons, the
mm-hmm,
stories. Um, they're right there in Buddhism for me. And when I tried to reach to a different direction, it was just out of grasp, it wasn't quite there for me. And I could see it gray.
mm-hmm,
Whereas the Buddhism thing was in full color, lots of
right,
gold and everything. So that's an example in real time of what it's like when you're reaching for something that's not quite yours, and then the one that does work for you is there. So go that way.
right.
Do more in that direction, work with that in some way, and
Mm,
then apply whatever else you're learning in that direction, in that mode.
right. Part of me wants to make a joke. Does that mean that the Church of the Jedi are going to grow and ascend? Are going to ascend? It's an
I
official
don't know.
religion.
Do they want
It's an
to?
official religion. That's all I'm saying.
Well, there's also Cthulhu
Yeah.
and the Flying Spaghetti Monster and a bunch of
Yes.
other ones. So, yeah, I have the
That's what I'm
book
waiting
on the
for.
flying.
I'm waiting for
I
visions of
have
this flying spaghetti monster.
I have the book on the Flying Spaghetti
All right.
Monster. Yeah, actually, one of my kids gave it to me.
Mhm.
Here, you study religions. Check this
Yeah.
one. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Finish all their prayers with ramen.
Oh, grown.
Yeah. Well, that's to my
It's a pen.
understanding. That's in there.
It's a penne that one, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yes. Yeah.
yes.
So I think you kind of got it spot on there. Take your metaphors that you already know. Work with what you know. If it changes, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's fine too. There you go. There's your debrief.
Hmm.
Take what you know.
Yeah, I think that's the root of it, and that was what was trying to come through
Hmm.
today. Was doesn't matter what it calls itself or what it looks like. You know what you know. Go with that.
Yeah. I'm also getting patted on the back, so
Oh,
I'm
there
going to
you go.
take that as that's the proper thing.
Nice. Love it when a thing comes together.
Yeah. All right. So don't make yourself suffer in silence because you think that's will solve your problems, or at least give you some kind of forgiveness for yourself,
Kudos.
right?
You don't get brownie points for heaven
Right.
by doing that. Actually, when I worked I volunteered in an orphanage
Mhm.
in Bangladesh, and I went there because I thought, wow, that's going to be really cool. That'll be so interesting. It's in my early 20s. So I went and did that. And one of the volunteers there, I actually overheard her saying that, oh, well, look at me. I'm here doing this selfless act because it's going to help me get into heaven. And being rather young and impetuous, I did not keep my mouth shut. I went and called bullspit on that and, said, no, 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 you're here because you thought you'd enjoy it. No human being ever says, I'm going to go do that thing because I think I'm going to hate it, right? We don't do that. We can't do that. That's not what we do. We are going to get pleasure out of the thing we're choosing one way or another, right? It might not look it to someone, but so if you're choosing this sort of suffering silence crap,
Hmm.
it's because you like it. It feels to you like you're scoring brownie points for
Right.
heaven, or you're, getting yourself higher than the people around you or something. It like gives you some kind of superiority. Well, newsflash, nobody else thinks that. And I don't think that's how it works.
Mm.
But it's interesting that sometimes people will convince themselves that that's true. There's no way this woman showed up in Bangladesh because she was scoring brownie points for heaven,
Mm.
unless that gave her pleasure to think she was doing so.
Right.
But either way, that was what it came down to, as she thought she was going to get something good out of this. What a
Yeah.
load of twaddle.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So yeah. So all that and lean into your metaphors that you already know, because that's going to help you use the magic that's coming your way if it isn't already
yep,
there.
which it is. Yep.
So yes. And I'm leaving those words at that. No words need to be more added to that. Right. So with that said, once again, I'm Daniel Zupo.
And I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Until next time.
Until next time.